I could say this was my plan all along, but I could also tell you that I broke my computer yesterday and my screen's not working, so I don't have a presentation for you. But I'm going to teach you 7 things, another 7 things that I know and these guys already covered. So, but it's on paper, so it's automatically better, right? You guys ready? Okay. Wait, I have to tell you who I am. So my name is Kevin. I also work for Frog, and I'm teaching Artifacts from the Future with Ulrich. So, you ready? Let's get started. So, number 1 is people's reactions to ideas. So people react to different ideas different ways. So people react to good ideas and they say, ah, that'll work. People react to bad ideas and they say, hey, that will never work. People react to great ideas saying, hey, that will never work. So you can see, it's a little bit trouble navigating between these two. Number 2, the secret to good work. So 2% luck, 5% coffee, 10% talent, not as important as you might think, 33% hard work, and 50%, which is just not faffing around on the internet all day. And if you don't know what the word faffing is, it's like another word that begins with F and ends in ing. It's kind of politer version of it. Number 3, creative process. So, you start out here, you're like, hey, this is great. Or if you're American, you say, hey, this is awesome. But I can't say that, I'm Irish. Then you're like, okay, it's a little bit more difficult. Then you get down to the bottom, you're like, oh my god, right in the middle of it where everything makes no sense. You're like, this is terrible, this is shit. I'm not going to make it out alive. And then slowly you work, and the other guys talked about just doing something. I think that's when you really need to do that here. And then you get to this point, and you're like, ooh, it might be okay. And then slowly you work, and you come here like, hey, it's great. Maybe not as good as it was over there. But it's still pretty good. And you're like, what were these guys worried about? Number 4. So Matt talked a little bit about kind of like getting a bit down, and you know, like when sometimes you have difficult times. So I think this explains it a little bit. Is eventually or at some point in your life you made something, whether it's a painting or a poster or a piece of code. You made something and you're like, hey, I made this, and then you're like, this is good. Then you're like, ooh, that means I am good. And then you go in this circle and you keep doing this. And then after a while, you end up in design school.
At that point, that came up to this is bad.
And that is the problem. This is number 4, part B, which is, I made this, this is bad, I am bad. And this is very difficult because when you're down the depths of that creative process, you feel like this. Or maybe not every project is good. And some projects are difficult, some projects fail. And the point of this, I think, is like you are not your work. If there's one thing you take about it, say you are not your work, be passionate, care a lot. But if you can separate your own ego and your own self-worth from your work, it will make it a lot easier to navigate these difficult times. And actually, you'll end up doing better work because you're able to just sort of get through it. And this took me a long time to learn this. It's easy to say, it's hard to learn. Next, I want to talk about expectations. So it's a very, very funny one. A lot of people have this these days. I feel like a lot of people are kind of about the ideas. So if the expected effort is here, but the effort actually required is here, this is when you're in the zone of disillusion. And this is a very unhappy place because you just feel like a failure. Because you're like, you're like, why is this so difficult? And then you're like, oh, that's because I'm not good enough. But actually, you just had no idea what you're supposed to be doing. So make sure you know, because if you don't know this, it can be very disappointing. Number 6 is your talent cannot exceed your taste. So Matt talked a lot about taste, and I think that's a very important part about being a designer. So this is time, this line here. This is quality, and this is your taste here. This is your talent. So as Matt very well explained, like over time, your talent increases. You know, you get better and better and better. But the bit I want to talk about is kind of what happens after this. If you're not careful, what can happen is you plateau because your taste is not getting better. And I've seen this happen to many designers. After a few years, they're like, oh yeah, I'm pretty good. And the problem is, this bit here feels really nice. It's really cozy. You're like, hey, I know stuff. I'm good. Maybe you're even like getting awards or something. It feels really nice. And the idea of, hey, I want to grow a bit more, that's not something you want to do, because as soon as your taste goes up, what you think happens as a designer is actually you feel like your talent went down. And that's one of the biggest things I learned, is that when you have difficult challenges, this line feels fixed to you emotionally. So everything feels relative. So when you're on a really difficult project or you're not succeeding, the problem is actually your taste has probably gone up. I personally I remember I had a recent experience on this where I came out of a user test, and me and my friend, we were like looking at each other, not happy. He said, what would you give that out of 10? And we were like, I'd give it about a 3. And he said, yeah, me too. And then we said, let's go get some beer. And what happened right then, in that moment, our taste had just gone up a notch. It wasn't a pleasant feeling though. And that's the thing, is like when your taste goes up, try to learn to deal with that. And lastly, I want to say, love what you make. It's a little bit of a phrase that we say at Frog. And I'll be honest, when I joined Frog, I was like, I don't even know what that means. It's just one of those slogans. But I think this little diagram explains it a little bit, so I'll talk to you a little bit more. So on the left you have the idea, right? And on the right you have the outcome, and in the middle is the work, which these two gentlemen also talked about. So a little bit about the work. And let me also tell you a story. Where I live in Germany. I'm not from Germany. I moved there a few years ago, and when I moved to Germany I said, hey, I've got an idea. I'm going to learn German. It turns out I didn't want to learn German at all. I wanted to speak German. I wanted to be here. And when someone said to me, hey, do you speak German? I would have said, yeah, I learned it a few years ago in the past. Because learning German is hard. Learning German is going to night classes when you want to go watch beers. It's spending time on Duolingo when you could be doing something else. It's having conversations with people and feeling awkward. And it turns out I don't like learning German at all. And I guess you might be saying, what does that mean for design? Well, I'll get to that. So what it means for design is, what I see sometimes with people is they get a little bit sort of amazed by a project or by a product. So if there's a product out there that you like I really like the Nintendo Switch or Google Home, or you see some social impact work, and if you see this work and you say, wow, that's amazing, I would have liked to work on that project, I would have liked to be involved in that, I think the best thing is ask yourself, do you like the idea or the outcome, or do you like the work? So, maybe, you didn't actually like what it would have been to be on that project. And I think that's the thing, is, this is what you're going in, day out to do. So this is the stuff that you really need to like. If you've got a good vision and a good direction, that's really important. But this is the sort of 90% of what you're doing every day. So I would say, yeah, whether it's like, kind of doing UX and spending deep down in wireframes, whether it's going out and doing research and constantly interviewing and iterating on projects, whether it's coding, whether it's accounting, if you want to be an accountant for the UN, great. It's find the work that you love and love doing it. Thank you very much.